I always believed pain had a sound, a shriek, a sob, the crash of something breaking, but when the car hit me, there was nothing, just silence. Deafening, blank, like someone had hit mute on the entire world. I remember the dull ache in my ribs, the blood in my mouth, the way my body refused to move even though my mind was screaming. I remember the paramedics, the cold stretcher, the blur of hospital lights. But what I remember most vividly is the hope that followed. They'll come. Mom and Dad will come. They didn't. The first night in the hospital, I was in and out of consciousness. Nurses moved around me like ghosts, adjusting Roman fours and checking charts. My phone had cracked in the accident, but I managed to ask a nurse to call my parents. She did, they didn't answer. She told me kindly, brushing hair from my face, maybe they're in transit, I'm sure they'll be here soon. I nodded, believing her. On the second day, I was more alert, hurting, but aware. I asked the nurse again. This time, she looked uncomfortable. They said they're away, she said carefully. They'll call you tomorrow. Away, confused, I reached for the spare phone the hospital had loaned me. My hands trembled as I logged into my old social accounts. Notifications flooded the screen, but one post caught my eye and froze my blood. Family getaway with my favorite girls sparkling. Palm # Maldive magic # sister time # family first. There they were, my parents, glowing with sun, kissed smiles, drink glasses raised in a toast. And next to them, of course, was my older sister Ree. Perfect, golden Ree, always the favorite, always the center. The photo was posted yesterday, the day I was admitted. I read the caption 3 times before I allowed myself to feel it. Something cracked open inside me, slow and silent, like an old fracture that had never fully healed. They knew, they had to know. The nurse called. My emergency contact was still my mother, but instead of the hospital, they chose white sand beaches and infinity pools. They chose her. It wasn't the first time I'd been second. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the bookworm. The sensitive girl who colored outside the lines and cried when her hamster died. Ree was the achiever, the athlete, the girl who won trophies and smiled perfect for the camera. My parents didn't hate me, they just never seemed to notice me. Not really. At my high school graduation, they left after Ree gave her speech as the guest alumna. I walked the stage and looked out to an empty row of seats. They were gone. When I got into university on scholarship, they congratulated me over a distracted dinner, more focused on Ree's new business launch. But this was different. This wasn't subtle neglect. This was abandonment. By the 4th day, I stopped asking if they called. A nurse named Liana began sitting with me during her breaks, talking about books and music, sometimes sneaking in cookies from the cafeteria. She became the closest thing I had to family during those sterile, lonely days. When they discharged me a week later, still bruised, still aching, but stable, I sat on the hospital bench with a paper bag of meds in one hand and nowhere to go. No ride, no call, no parents. It was of my best friend since high school who showed up. I hadn't even asked. He just knew. He pulled up in his old dented Civic, got out without a word, and wrapped me in the gentlest hug. I saw the photos. He whispered into my hair, "I'm so sorry." And finally I cried, not from the pain. Not from the accident, but from that deep, unbearable betrayal that comes when the people who are supposed to love you simply don't. Later that night, curled up on Arav's couch, I scrolled through the comments on my mother's post. Such a beautiful family. You raised 2 amazing daughters. Goals. Ree is shining as always, sparkling heart. I stared at those words until they blurred. No one knew that one of those daughters had been bleeding on cold asphalt, while the others sipped cocktails by the sea. I almost posted a reply. I almost uploaded my hospital photo, face swollen, arms bruised, wires hooked to my chest. But I didn't because I realized they didn't deserve to know my pain. Not yet. That night, as the rain tapped against the window, I whispered a promise to myself. They chose to be absent, so now I'll show them what absence really feels like. Not out of spite, not even for revenge. But because I was done begging for love I never truly had, the first few weeks after the hospital felt like I was living inside a hollow shell of myself. Pain still lived in my bones, not the kind that pills could touch, but the kind that memory leaves behind, that whisper in your chest reminding you, they didn't come. I stayed at Arav's small apartment above a tea shop. It smelled like cardamom, and books the scent of home I never had. He never asked for explanations or expected smiles. He just gave me space, food, and silence when I needed it. It was more than my own family had done in 22 years. One night, curled up under his old knitted blanket, I asked him the question that had been echoing in my skull since the crash. "Was it me?" I whispered, staring at the ceiling. He looked up from his laptop. "What do you mean? Was I just not lovable enough, not interesting enough? Did I not try hard enough to matter?" Arav closed the lid, got up, and sat beside me. "You know what's messed up," he said gently. "You're asking what you did wrong, instead of what they failed to do right." I looked at him, blinking back tears. "I don't think it was ever about love," he continued. "I think they just never bothered to see you, and that's on them, Maya, not you. But it still hurt. Every little thing reminded me of the way they forgot me." The voicemail from my mother, finally arriving 9 days too late. Cheerful, rushed, "Hope you're feeling better. The Maldives were incredible. Re-swam with dolphins." She didn't mention the accident, didn't ask if I was walking, didn't say sorry, just, "Dolphins." I stopped answering their calls. Not an anger in survival. I had spent my life twisting myself into smaller and quieter shapes, hoping they'd finally notice the girl in the corner. But I was done shrinking. I was done bleeding for their approval. So, I poured all the quiet rage, all the grief, into something new. Arav helped me recover physically and otherwise. He drove me to physiotherapy, brought me old sketch pads, and reminded me of the art I used to love before life had dulled it out of me. "You used to draw galaxies when you were sad," he said one afternoon, "like you were building yourself a new world." So I started drawing again. First sketches, then design work, then freelancing online. At night, when the city fell asleep, I'd sit by the window with a warm drink and build digital art that pulsed with every feeling I couldn't say aloud. Abandonment became abstract silhouettes. Neglect became hollow-eyed portraits of faceless families. And somewhere in that mess of pixels and pain, I found purpose. 3 months passed, then 6. I moved into a tiny studio with rent I could barely afford, filled with second-hand furniture and paper lanterns. I launched a design page, took commissions, and began making enough money to stand on my own. Still, I never heard the words I needed from them. No apology, no reckoning, only occasional, shallow texts. "We should do lunch soon. Ree is starting a podcast." I would stare at the messages and feel nothing but a cold, quiet distance. Sometimes I wondered if they even remembered the hospital, or if they told themselves a version of the story where they were innocent. We didn't know it was that serious, Maya Strong. She probably wanted space. They'd built their own narrative, but I had lived the truth. One day, Arav forwarded me an email. It was from my small digital magazine that had seen my work online and wanted to do a feature on me. I laughed when I saw the subject line, "The girl who draws pain into power." I never told them where the pain came from. But somehow they captured it. That article was the beginning. From there, opportunities blossomed. Gallery invites, collaborations, even a chance to design a mural for a new mental health center in the city. It was everything I had once thought I didn't deserve. Then, something unexpected happened. A message from Ree. "Ree, hey, Mom and Dad are feeling really hurt. They said you're icing them out. They don't understand what happened. Can we talk?" That was the moment something snapped in me. I had kept silent for months. I had rebuilt my life from the dust of their abandonment, and now they wanted to play the victims. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my old photo gallery, found the picture the nurse took of me in the hospital, at my lowest, bruised, pale, wrapped in wires. And for the first time, I posted it. No caption, no explanation, just the truth. The internet did the rest. People put the pieces together, the dates, the vacation posts, the timeline of neglect, and soon their perfect family vacation became a case study in emotional abandonment. Some of their friends unfollowed them. Ree deleted her vacation highlight reel. Mom called me 3 times in 1 hour. But I didn't pick up because they taught me silence, and I had learned it well. This wasn't revenge. Not really, it was reflection, a mirror held up to people who had only ever looked at themselves. And it was also the beginning of a new kind of power. The kind that doesn't scream, the kind that simply walks away. 3 years passed. I wish I could say I forgot everything, that time erased the betrayal, that healing felt like a soft exhale. But it didn't. Healing wasn't linear. It came in waves. Some days I thrived. Other days, I'd see a mother holding her daughter's hand on the subway, and something inside me would ache in places I couldn't name. But one thing changed. I stopped needing them to fix it, because I fixed myself. My little design brand, the one I started from Arev's couch, with trembling hands and hollow eyes, had grown into a full studio. We had 3 full-time artists, partnerships with mental health orgs, and clients that once felt like far-off dreams. My name was out there now, not because of shock or sympathy, but because I worked damn hard for it. People didn't just know my story, they knew my work. I was the headline now, and yet the silence broke eventually. It always does when the person you overlooked becomes impossible to ignore. It started with my mother's email. Long, dramatic, carefully worded like she was trying to win an audience instead of a daughter. We know things weren't perfect, Maya, but it's unfair how you've shut us out. We've seen your success. We're proud of you. We just want to move forward. Can't we start fresh? Start fresh? Like I was a cold coffee they'd left on the counter and just now remembered to reheat. No apology, no ownership. Just a request for reunion, because now I was worth their time. I didn't reply, but part of me didn't want to run anymore. I didn't want to carry their silence like a second skin. I had survived. I had bloomed. And maybe it was time they saw what they missed. So I agreed to meet, neutral place, daytime, no pretenses. A little cafe near the art district I lived in, where the walls were lined with paintings, and the coffee always smelled like burnt caramel. I arrived first, sitting in the corner seat. I wore the blazer from my first solo show, a little armor. A little grace. When they walked in, I felt nothing. No rage, no hope, just a distance. My mother looked older. Not fragile, but not the polished woman from those beachside selfies either. My father gave me a small smile, unsure, as if trying to read the room. Ree wasn't there, I was glad. We sat. They began with the usual, "You look well. We've been following your success. We're so happy for you." I sipped my coffee and let them talk. They danced around the past like it was a ghost they didn't know how to exorcise. Finally, my mother said it. "I know we weren't there when you needed us, but that vacation had been planned for months. We didn't think the accident was." I raised my hand, stopping her. "Don't explain," I said calmly. "There's nothing you can say that makes it okay." She flinched. My father stared at the table. "I'm not here because I need closure from you." I continued. "I gave that to myself a long time ago." They looked at me, eyes wet with confusion, maybe even guilt. "I'm here," I said softly, "to tell you that I'm done waiting to matter to you, waiting for the apology that never came, waiting for you to see me." "I do see you," my mother whispered. "No, you see who I became after you broke me," I said, "not who I was when I needed you most." Silence settled between us. Not cruel, just final. I stood up, pulling my coat over my shoulders. "I wish you peace," I said. "Truly, but I'm not your daughter out of obligation anymore. I've created a family who shows up. I have people who saw me when I was invisible. I don't need you to love me to feel whole." They didn't chase me as I left. They just sat there, surrounded by the sound of a truth too loud to deny. Outside, the wind was soft, rustling through the city like a whispered song. I walked slowly, past the mural I had painted a year ago on the corner of 3rd and Elm. A girl with constellations in her hair and wounds blooming like flowers from her skin. Under it the words, "I survived you," and I turned that survival into art. People took pictures of it now. Sometimes they tagged me. Sometimes they just stood quietly, looking. Later that evening, I sat with Arav on the roof of his building, the one where I stayed after the hospital. We watched the stars emerge, soft and indifferent. I met them. I said. He nodded. "How did it feel?" "Like the end of something," I replied. "And the beginning of something else." He looked at me, warm and steady. "I'm proud of you, Maya, for surviving, for thriving, for not turning into them." I smiled. "I didn't need revenge," I said. I just needed to live so fully, so beautifully, that the silence they left me with would echo in their hearts forever. And that was the sweetest part. Not vengeance, not bitterness, but knowing I became everything they never expected, and more.